Welcome to the Rural Revival Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Larson. Today we're sitting down with Chris Deal from Jefferson, Iowa. Chris moved back to his hometown to help with the family business, Deal's Orchard. He's had a key role in the revitalization of Jefferson and some exciting projects happening here. And he also telecommutes as an engineer, plus a lot of other things, but I just like to call him a rural visionary because that really is a role that he plays well, which you're about to find out. Chris is sharing a lot about the strategies that have worked in Jefferson, strategies that I believe could benefit your rural community as well. So here we go with Chris Deal. All right, well, today we're here with Chris Deal in Jefferson, Iowa, and I'm going to call you a rural visionary, even though you wear a lot of different hats, but that's how I tend to see you, and I know a lot of others see you that way too. So,
well, that's kind. Thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome to the podcast. You are originally from Jefferson, Iowa, and you recently moved back here. So tell us a little bit about what it was like to grow up here and about the journey that led you back here.
Well, first, thank you much for inviting me to be on the podcast. Very excited to have the opportunity to talk with you about this. Yes, from here in Jefferson, grew up here, and went to college. Didn't go that far away. Went over to Ames, Iowa State University, and then after graduating with an engineering degree there, went abroad for a year. Was in Kansas City for a couple years, teaching in some inner city schools down there, and then made my way back to Iowa. And lived in Ames, Iowa, worked in Des Moines, and then eventually was able to move back to Jefferson. It would have been two and a half years ago in 2016 now, and have absolutely loved being back.
That's awesome. Was that kind of your goal, to eventually find a way to get back?
Always. So had just a fantastic experience growing up in small town Iowa. Loved it. My family has an apple orchard. I think we'll have the opportunity to talk about that a little more. But I'm biased, but I think that might be the coolest childhood you could dream up. Yes. And so married a farm girl as well, and so she and I were both very much on the same page. We wanted to raise our kids in a rural small town environment, and things just worked out that we were able to do that back home in Jefferson.
I love it. Well, you, as I mentioned, wear a lot of hats. So tell us a little bit about, just to kind of help set the stage, all the different things that you're involved in.
Well, I am involved with family business in Jefferson. Deal's Orchard is the family business. It's an apple orchard. We are going on 102 years old now. So my parents are third generation. I have two brothers. Older brother and I are looking to come back and keep it going for another generation. And so love being back here and helping with that. I still work for an engineering firm in Des Moines. So the piece that allowed me to move back to Jefferson was that they've got a very progressive flex work policy. And so I get to telecommute from home a couple days a week, and then I drive down to Des Moines, about an hour or so drive the other 2 or 3 days of the week. And so that works fantastic. It gives me this opportunity to raise my family here. Besides that, do some farming. Married a farm girl, so we had the opportunity to get some ground, and so we farm that. We help out with the family, and then have found a few things in the community to get involved with as well.
Just a few. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the podcast, but let's start with talking about Deal's Orchard and how you've expanded and grown over the years and just kind of kept progressing from generation to generation.
Yeah, so it's a 45-acre apple orchard, which in the grand scheme of apples is not very big. I mean, you go out to Washington State and you measure them in the thousands of acres. For Iowa, it's one of the biggest ones that's around the state. My parents came home. My mom, Cindy, dad, Gerald, they came home right after college, took over from my dad's parents. And so when they always like to say when they took over, it was apples, some cattle, and then they made some cider and sold some honey, and that was about it. And so they have kudos to them because they've expanded considerably since then. Now, in addition to raising apples on the 45 acres, they make 35,000 gallons of cider. We have Christmas trees that we do in the Christmas season, 10 acres of pumpkins, 10 acres of sweet corn. We do a corn maze. We've jumped headfirst into the agritourism world, and so have a kids play area. We've got a concessions barn on weekends, and host hundreds, if not thousands, of people on weekends during the fall that come out to get to experience what a little bit of what rural Iowa is like. And so it's been really fun to see that and be a part of that develop over the years. And so most recently, we brought in some hard cider. We didn't bring in; we started making it. So that's my older brother's his project. We like to say it's our generation's contribution to the business is bringing the booze in. So.
Very nice. Well, I love that Deals is a destination for a lot of Iowans every fall. So it's a fun place to go.
It is fall weekends. They're a little chaotic, but we have a lot of fun, and we get to share it with quite a few people.
Yeah, it's great. What does it mean to you to get to continue the family business?
There's certainly some pride there, and also some anxiety. Just seeing the work and everything my parents have put into it, and my brother and I we joke, but only about half joking that, man, I hope we don't screw this thing up. We hope this thing's still around in another generation, but maybe our kids are going to be smarter than us. This side, there's easier lifestyles that are out there. But no, it's fun to be a part of a tradition that families have. It's fun to see the same families coming out year after year, whether it's local or we've got more and more people coming from the Ames area, the Des Moines area, which is 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. They'll drive up, and it's just enjoyable to see that and be able to bring some enjoyment to families.
Yeah, that's great. Well, even though you left here for a time, you've always had a heart for this community, and you've been actually highly involved in creating a vision for the future of Jefferson. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when we came back, my wife and I, we've got 3 kids, and so 5-year-old, 3-year-old, now a 9-month-old, and certainly have a vested interest in the community and the livelihood of the community. And so when we came back, we were looking for different things we can get involved with, and one of them was the schools and what we could do with the schools there. And so when we first moved back, there was a bond referendum. We've got like many rural communities, we've got some aging infrastructure for our schools. 100-year-old middle school that has served very well for 100 years, but time to be retired and replaced with something with a little bit more modern, accessible facility. And so we jumped in and helped out a little bit with a bond referendum right when we came back. And unfortunately, it was one that had ultimately failed, and a variety of reasons for why the community had not supported it. But it was something that opened our eyes a little bit to the needs in the community, and really gave us an additional drive to try to figure out a way that we could do something to take a step forward with schools and the facilities we've got. And so it's there's a lengthy background, so I'll spare you like the hour version of this and give you the cliff notes. But was part of a group of people that had been going around the state and seeing what different schools were doing and what different opportunities there were, and got to visit what was called a career academy in a different community over in Pella, Iowa, so other side of the state. And I remember was there and spent a morning there and got to hear the administration at Pella, the superintendent, talking about the opportunities their students had there. And it's a facility that was built by Pella Schools. It's for their high school students, but it's operated in conjunction with local community college and with the local industry. And so students can walk out of the Pella High School and 20 feet later walk into the Pella Career Academy. And at the Career Academy, they can take classes that are specifically focused on skills development, skilled workforce development. And so those align with what the local industry needs. So Pella has a wonderful base of industry, including a significant need for welding, among other things. And so kids are able to go there and take welding classes that are taught by people from local industry. So not only do they learn the skills, but they learn the specific skills for the industry there. And there's similar programs for hospitality, for catering. And so it gives them the skills, and more importantly, it gives them the skills that aligns with the local workforce and workforce needs. And I remember walking out of that and saying, well, that's awesome. Kudos. They had said that a student in Pella could graduate from high school that same day, have a 2-year degree that they can walk out of school with and go right into a fantastic job. And so tipped my hat to them, and then said, well, why shouldn't we do something like that in Jefferson and Greene County? And so that was the kind of the question that really started this whole process moving to where we eventually ended up passing a school bond that brought in our own career academy. Is going to bring 8 school districts together into Jefferson, sending their students there, and then working with several industry players in the area to give them skilled workforce needs, or to address their skilled workforce needs that they have.
That's amazing. Talk a little bit about why you think it's so important that we start with the high schoolers in our rural communities.
It's we have incredible talent in our rural communities. I think that's something that does not receive the credit that it's due. We have some people who grow up and have incredible work ethics, in addition to just fantastic skills. And so the challenge that oftentimes happen is these students don't see an opportunity for them to come back home to, or to stay in the community to serve. And so starting in high school, and really starting even before high school, and identifying that there are these jobs here, and there are jobs in rural Iowa and rural America, and helping students to see what that looks like creates a opportunity for them, and an understanding of an opportunity for them that we don't often convey very well.
Yeah, I love just that whole concept, and it's kind of helping a high schooler see the vision for staying there and the value that their small town already has. And I'm excited to see more of a shift in that direction. So
it's exciting, and we look at it's going to work great for kids who maybe they aren't going to go to college, and let's find a way that we can get them the skills they need so they can roll right into a great paying job, and something that can be a career for them. But it also works on the other side, and if we have people who are going to a 4-year college, well, they get to try a variety of different things. They can experiment here, and maybe that helps them change a major one less time, or helps them have a better idea of what they want to do when they go off to college. When I left at age 18, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Heck, I still don't know what I want to do, right? But I to an extent, I lucked out and ended up in a great engineering program, and found something that really worked well for me. And not everybody's that lucky. And so giving kids the opportunity to have a few more experiences and know just that much more before they take that next step, I think is just a critical piece as we move forward.
absolutely. Well, it's going to be fun to watch that and see how that evolves as well. One thing I want you to talk a little bit about is Jefferson is part of the Main Street program. And I know, like, before I got really heavily involved in this, I didn't fully understand even what that meant or the opportunities that brought for a town. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and Jefferson joined the Main Street program. I believe it was 2012. We can double check on that date. But Jefferson's been a part of the Main Street program for several years, and it has been a fantastic program in that it's brought a little structure and certainly opened the door to opportunities. We have a incredibly active board and an incredibly active executive director. Peg Rainey is her name, and she is fantastic. And so she retired school teacher, and so brings a wonderful attitude to the table, a wonderful work ethic, and has this unique ability to bring people together. And so under the leadership of the active board and Peg and the team, they have really used the structure of Main Street as a way to move the entire community forward and to bring a incredible number of people to the table to help.
That's great. And once you get accepted into the Main Street program, it opens up the door for a lot of grants and other resources to help the revitalization of Main Street, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I've heard Peg and some of the board members. I'm not a member of the board. I find whatever ways I can to help out with the projects. But I've got to watch and see how this has grown in the community. And I've heard them describe that the first few years you kind of get a better feel for how the program works. And once you get established, that can help you really to take that next step and to start participating in some of these wonderful programs. I think the one that certainly is the most visible right now in Jefferson is the CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant, I believe, and they use that to do a significant facade rehabilitation around our city square. And so 13 different storefronts were restored to a historically accurate context, and it just looks incredible.
It does.
You've walked it, we've walked it together, and it just gives a feeling of vibrancy that hasn't been there really for years, if not decades. And I'm going to steal from Peg. She says this, but she says your main street or your downtown in a small town is like your living room at home, right? And so when people walk into it, that says a lot about what priorities you have as a community, what you really think of yourself as a community. And so when you can present that in such a vibrant manner, it creates the right feeling.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to note because I am so impressed with everything going on here, but it didn't just happen overnight. This has been years in the making. So take us through that process a little bit. And I know a lot of that happened too when you weren't even living there full time, but where did that start? And then how did, it's so overwhelming. Like, how do you determine what's the next priority to get you to where it's at today?
I think that's one of the biggest pieces when I've had the chance to go and speak about some of the things that Jefferson's doing or any of the people who are involved in this is to convey that it hasn't been an overnight thing. This has been it's a long progression with several different pieces to it. I've had this conversation with others here in town and trying to figure out kind of what was that progression or what did it look like, and we go back and Jefferson like rural America, really, there was a point where it was thriving, and then all of a sudden you started to have that change in trend. And so whether that was when we had the big box stores, the Walmarts and things like that starting to appear, and retail starting to, especially rural retail, starting to take a step back, there's, I think, a variety of trends that started to move things in the wrong direction. And Jefferson, for whatever reason, had people who were willing to identify some of the challenges, and then start to think about what are things that we could do to potentially reverse that trend. And we're like a lot of communities. We are smaller than we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We've had people move away. We've lost businesses. We've certainly seen challenges. But through that, we've had a couple big wins that have helped reverse that trend and put us at a point now where we think that we are on the right trajectory, and we're very excited about where we're going.
I love it. And so where did they start?
I think when we look at what are some of the big things that happened, we have a unique manufacturing base in Greene County. And so Jefferson's a part of Greene County. Jefferson's 4,200 people, Greene County about 9,000 people, west central Iowa, and certainly an ag community at its core. But we also have this really unique manufacturing base. We've got manufacturers in the county that send products all over the world, and it's a really unique mix of products. If you watch the Olympics, there's a good chance that the balance beam that you see on the Olympics was made in Jefferson, Iowa.
So cool.
It's an awesome facility. It's an awesome story. There is weightlifting equipment that's in almost all the NCAA facilities and NFL football stadium. The teams use weightlifting equipment that's manufactured in Jefferson. The 48-row planters, John Deere planters, are made in Peyton, Iowa, about 15 miles north of Jefferson. There's another facility that's right beside that makes big custom equipment for the steel industry and for the hog industry and manure applicators. Garbage trucks are sent all over the world from Scranton, Iowa. We've got geothermal equipment that's used throughout the country. Like it's this really unique mix of manufacturing, but the one consistent piece is that they're all started locally. And so there's an amount of rural entrepreneurship that we have that's at our core, and then an ability to keep those people in the community. And so finding ways to keep those manufacturers there, finding ways to keep that kind of base of jobs has been important and has not been easy. And then we've paired that with some of the other pieces. It sounds small, but we had a second grocery store come to town, right? Anyone from Iowa knows Hy-Vee, and we had a Hy-Vee come to town, and people love Hy-Vee, right? And so we had that. We did a major redo to a overpass so we could have access across both sides of town. We had a casino. We are selected as a community for a casino, one of the only rural casinos in the state. And that in and of itself was a piece where the community came together and really made a statement about how interested the community was in that. And the piece that provides is that the casino shares revenue with the community. It shares 5% of its revenue with Greene County, with the surrounding counties.
Wow.
And that was a part of the application to the state gaming commission when the opportunity presented itself. And really what we think gave us the opportunity to have that facility. Now, no matter what you think of casinos, having that type of a revenue for nonprofits in the community, that does provide some additional opportunity. And so there's a combination of all of these things that have helped put us in a position that gives us this capability that to take that next big step.
Well, that is super interesting. And kind of going back to the town square, I know another key person there's been a lot of key people, right?
Absolutely,
but,
yes.
One of the key people that I know is Nick Sorensen. And he works for the city. Mm-hmm. And he mentioned when we were doing that tour that one of the things that has been a huge help is the ability to be able to purchase some of these buildings on the square that, aren't in a great state anymore for $1. Is that right? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, I believe he got one of them for $1. I know he got one of them for $50.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that happen?
So we're lucky to have a active city through all of this, and so a lot of what we've done has been because of these public-private partnerships. So this is a great example of one of those. The city. We, like many small communities, have buildings around our square that aren't being used and that are slowly degrading away. But the city has recognized it, and this is something that's happened primarily in the last 5 years or so. But they've made the decision to be proactive, and so if they see a building that's getting to the point where it is nearing a point of no return, they will reach out to the owner and say, "Hey, your building is becoming a public danger, and we either need you to put money into it, or if you don't have an interest in doing that, it's not economically feasible for you. You can turn it over to the city or sell it to the city for whatever the price might be." And so they've done that, and they've done that a handful of times. And then once they take on the buildings, they will put money into the buildings to stabilize them. And so in essence, what that does is it takes a building that really is not economically feasible for someone to come in and to improve, and instead gets it to a point where someone can possibly come in, improve it, and make it a asset again to the community. And the city then turns it over to that individual. They they've used forgivable loans as one method of recouping, in essence, their investment in the building, and they tie the loan to someone continuing to own, operate, use the facility for 10 years or 15 years. And so make sure that it's someone who's there and there for the right reason. And they've had incredible success doing that. And it's something I kudos to the city council for a willingness to do it. But because of that, they've been able to maintain a fantastic city square. They have all four corners of our city square intact, which to me never was, it didn't really jump out as unique. But as I've heard more and seen more across the state, across the country, that no, that is pretty special that we still have that much of our city square intact, and now that much more historically accurate too.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I just love to hear that's possible, because I think a lot of people don't know that. So I think that's a great word for a lot of our listeners. Jefferson has been getting a lot of press lately, not just for all of this great stuff going on, but there is a new project in town that you initiated called The Forge. So I want you to share about that and all the awesome things going on with that.
Well, like everything else, this has been far beyond just me. There's a incredible group of people that's helped make all of this happen. The backstory to this, so the Forge is a software development company, and so they have offices all over the country. Pillar Technology is the company's name. Their offices they call the Forge. And so they are based in Columbus, Ohio, also have offices in Ann Arbor, in Palo Alto, in Des Moines, and now they're going to open one in Jefferson, right? Which makes perfect sense compared to these other communities. But the opportunity to have this company come into town goes back to that what we were doing with our schools. And so we didn't set out with the brilliant idea of bringing software development to West Central Iowa. It was more of an opportunity that came up, and we said, well, heck yes, we're going to jump at this opportunity. We with the schools project, we had the idea of bringing a career academy to our community, and so we loved the idea of bringing skilled workforce training to our schools. And so we were able to pair with Iowa Central Community College and bring in this career academy, or really bring this idea to the community about having a career academy. This was part of a school bond referendum. It was the third attempt, and so I'd mentioned that I had moved back just before the second attempt. It had failed. It got 54% approval, but school bonds need 60%, so we were just shy. That one was asking the community to support the project at about $20 million. I think it was 21 or 22. And we, after that one did not fail, we stepped back and said, okay, why did it not pass? What were the challenges? And this is something that happens all over Iowa, all over America, is that it takes a while to do a significant project. $20 million is a lot for a community of 4,200, a county of 9,000. And so, asked around and really tried to understand what were the challenges before. For us, part of the original idea was that we were going to have a new gym. We were going to take our existing middle school, we were going to decommission that, take our existing high school, which was built in the late 60s, and add on to that and create this middle school, high school combination 512 facility. And so as a part of that, adding a new high school or adding a significant amount to that school, we were going to add a gym as well. Well, we heard from the community that there was concern with using public dollars for athletics. And so understood that was a concern from some people. Others, they didn't have an issue with it, but it was enough of a concern that became a piece we had to deal with. And then also understood that we had just consolidated schools, another piece that small towns go through frequently now. Yes. And so part of it was closing another school and bringing kids over. And so there's still some concern with that consolidation. Anytime you consolidate, that's a challenging process. I understand that entirely. And so we stepped back and said, okay, we have this idea for a career academy. We think this makes a lot of sense for our community, aligns very well with the manufacturing base that we have. We think there's a need in agriculture and how technology is coming into agriculture and for training in that realm. There's always a need in healthcare, rural healthcare. We knew that there was a need in hospitality and catering. And so we had this blend of skilled workforce training that we wanted to provide. And so we needed to figure out how could we take the idea of basically decommissioning this old building and creating a new facility for 3 to 4 grades, and then add a career academy to it. Career academies cost anywhere from $3 to $5 million. We didn't think that coming back and saying, "Hey, we want to do this, and we want to add $5 more million to it," was going to be something that the community would be very open to. And so we had to step back and say, "All right, what other sources of funding do we have? What else can we do to make this a little bit more palatable for the voters who ultimately need to approve it to make this happen?" And so that's where we had approached early on. We have a organization, a nonprofit organization that holds the license for our local casino, and so they're the ones that also distribute the 5% of the revenue annually to the community that comes from that casino. 4.1 stays in Greene County, and 0.9 gets split between the adjacent counties. And so we had approached them and said, "Hey, we've got this challenge or this opportunity. We know that the gym was a challenging piece before. Is there any way that we can use this unique financing source and in essence offset the cost of the gym, and take that away from a public financing perspective and find that alternative financing?" And it happened that organization, they had done wonderful things. I think it was the 3rd or 4th year of distributions, but they were looking for a flagship project. And so, nail in the head, they said,
Perfect.
"Absolutely, we want to be a part of this. And if that's going to help make this work, yeah, we're on board." And so they allocated $4.5 million and worked with local banks. By no means was it that easy. They didn't have that much sitting around by any means. And so it took some additional work with local banks that were very involved to come up with a way to get that money up front for construction, but found a way to get $4.5 million toward the project. And so that covered the cost of a gym, and it went towards an auditorium and starting to bring an auditorium into the mix. The other piece that we decided when we started looking at this project was, do we want to add on to our existing facility, our existing school, or do we step back and look at this from a broader perspective? And so Pella, the community that had served as something of an example of how this could be done, they had a standalone high school, and then right beside it was the career academy, and created this wonderful symbiosis between the two facilities. We said, well, if we're going to be, in essence, building a new building, why not do the same thing and locate this somewhere that it can be very visible? It can make a very strong statement about how important education is in our community. And so step back and said, yeah, let's just do a entirely new high school and put an entirely new career academy right next to it. And so lucked out, found the perfect location right by the 2 main highways that run through town. So we could locate it somewhere that anyone who drives through Jefferson, most people who drive through Greene County, they're going to see this facility. We got the local community college. They were excited to be a part of it as well. And there is certainly some challenges there too, just with how Iowa works and community college boundaries. And so we were right on the boundary with another community college. And so it required working through that and figuring out how can we make sure that the community colleges aren't creating this turf war, right? And so worked with our community college, worked with the neighboring one, and ultimately, again, kudos to them because they realized that this is the right thing to do for students, for the community, and got them on board with it. And so came forward with ultimately this idea of a career academy and regional center. We needed a critical mass of students for it to work. And so that's more students than we have in Jefferson and Greene County. And so we looked to any neighboring districts within a 30-mile radius. Our superintendent reached out to theirs and said, hey, would you be interested in this facility if we offered these types of training programs? And across the board, they said, well, yeah, we're interested. Yeah. If these are opportunities our kids can't get at our school, we want to provide the right opportunities for our students. And so it all came together really well. We ended up, through all of it, we realized that we needed some additional financing. That often happens. And so the final piece of the puzzle was our county and our county supervisors. And so the other revenue source for this was that we have wind turbines that are being put up in Greene County. We had 40 of them as of today that are operational, another 80 that are being put up. And so those wind turbines create a fairly considerable amount of taxable income for the county. And so one thing that some other communities in the state have done is they've created a TIF district using those wind turbines and using some of the revenue created from those to create economic or to go towards economic programs. And so we worked with the county supervisors, worked with a lot of lawyers, and figured out a way to structure that. And ultimately, they put $5 million toward the project. And that $5 million was earmarked directly toward the Career Academy, because that is the economic development piece that we're really bringing to the table. And so all of a sudden, we had a project that became a $35 million project. And we were able to do it, and we were still asking, in essence, the same amount of our taxpayers. So we had 20 from them. We had $5 million from the county, $4.5 million from our Grow Green County organization, the casino funding, and then the schools had an additional $4.5 million with a couple of the other financing buckets that schools in Iowa have. And so we had a project. The previous project had been about $22 million. We had a $35 million project, but we're asking the same amount from our taxpayers. Put it up for a vote, and we were able to pass the bond referendum April 3rd, 2018. Big day for the community, and it passed with 68% support. And it really became a referendum on economic development and the opportunities for our students. And so using that as the driver for it really changed the conversation. And that's the piece that opened up some of these other opportunities. So I told you it's a long backstory, right?
But very fascinating, really.
So how does that tie into the Forge, right? I haven't mentioned the Forge at all yet. The way the Forge ties into that, when we were very early in this process, we'd actually just approached the community college with the idea of this career academy. I connected with Link Kroger with the Forge, with Pillar Technology. Link and I have we go back because my day job as an engineer. I did the mechanical electrical design for the office where he's at.
Funny how that all comes full circle, right?
Small world. Yeah, it's not what you know, it's who you know kind of thing, right?
Definitely.
And so a wonderful thing that the Forge does is they open their office for nonprofits to use for events, and they rent it for free to these nonprofit events. And so I was at the Forge, was helping coordinate an event, and sat down with Link at the end of it over a hard cider, and we were talking about just how things were progressing. I think that was about a year after they'd finished their construction of the project. And they had just taken off. They'd filled up the office already. They were expanding and really doing just incredible things already. And I remember I asked him. I said, "Well, Link, what's next? Where are you going to go? Are you opening in Des Moines again, or somewhere else in the country?" And he said, "Well, I think the next place we're going to go is rural Iowa." And I had just moved back to Jefferson. I'm like, "Well, tell me more, Link. I'm very interested in learning about that." And he explained this vision that he had for looking at software development or computer science, and instead treating it like a 4-year degreed type of a career, saying, well, this is something that we can treat really as a skilled workforce, and probably a 2-year degree, if that, and teach these skills that we need in a far more structured and abbreviated method. And he said that he had this idea. He wanted to try it in rural Iowa, and that's driven largely by his background. He grew up in rural Iowa, and then he had to move away because that was the only way he could get involved in the computer science world. The jobs just weren't here. And so he wanted to find a community where he could create a partnership with a K-12 school and with a community college. And I remember I said, well, what about Jefferson, Iowa? And he said, where's that? And so pulled up my phone and said, well, here's where it is. And he wanted to know a little bit more about it. And one of his first questions was, do you have a community college? I said, well, not yet, but let me tell you about this idea we have and this conversation we just had with our community college, Iowa Central Community College. And not only that, but we think that we're going to create a regional academy and bring all of these high school students together in this one location. And so it worked out that aligned exactly with what he was looking for. And he very soon after that came out to Jefferson. We walked him around the community, very similar to the walk that we made with you.
Yes.
And that's where a lot of the work that had already gone into the community really came through. And so we were just finishing the facade rehabilitation. And so he saw construction all over our downtown. He saw things happening. We talked about the businesses that had come to town. We talked about the different things that were going on, about young people who had moved back. And so he saw that not only was it a community that provided the partners he was looking for, but it was a community that had the right attitude that he was looking for as well.
Absolutely. And I love that you had a vision for something that could be possible, even without knowing exactly what that might be. And because you went ahead with it, it opened the door to this opportunity to come in.
A big piece is that there's no script out there for how to do rural development, economic development, but there are certain pieces that you need to get right, and so education is a critical one. If you don't have schools, if you don't have that as a base, that's something someone's going to want to move back to. It's going to be challenging, and so our focus was really on schools. But then we were lucky, I guess is the word I'll use, that we didn't have the blinders on in a manner that made us miss these other opportunities as they presented themselves. And so we saw something, we jumped at it, and it's really led us down an exciting path.
Yeah, it really is providing an awesome opportunity for the next generation of Jefferson and Greene County and beyond. And I just love, again, that there's this dedicated group of people in Jefferson who have a vision, and that's so awesome. But in addition to the Forge, there's other stuff going on too. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so we have been very proactive in trying to create an overall package for people looking at our community or just looking at rural Iowa, rural America, and so we have the. It sounds unique, but I think this happens more often than we realize. But we have too many jobs, not enough people. And so I think it's 30% of the workforce in Greene County comes in from outside of our community. And so we've got jobs, and we've got good jobs. And so now we need to create the package that's going to make people want to come back, and instead of commuting to our community, live in our community. And so we engaged a very active, I'll call him a local visionary. Zach Mannheimer is the individual's name, and so he is. We were the first community he worked with to do a process that he called creative placemaking, and so figuring out what it is that's going to create the package that people are going to want to move back to. He very much believes, and I agree, that we're at a point where people no longer are going to choose where they live based on the jobs, because I can work from home and work on a job that's anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world right now. Instead, it's going to be these amenities and the community that really is going to drive people's decisions. And so how can we distinguish ourselves based on that? We've got the jobs. Now, how do we get the people to come out? And so he led a process, a very collaborative process, where we looked at what were the pieces that really would set Jefferson and Greene County apart. And so the first two items, number one, number two on the list, were the schools. And so we started this process at the very beginning of the schools project. And so recognition that that's the priority right now. And then number two was housing, and how do we address the challenge of housing in rural America? Housing is just kind of stuck right now,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you've talked about this and looked into this, but we need to create something that allows that housing market to start moving. It's tough to find a house in rural America for a young family, like a starter house. And it's challenging for developers to come in and build in rural America because there is a appraisal gap. There's no comparables, right? For when they want to come and they do a pro forma and try to figure out, if I build, what can I sell it for? Well, there's nothing to compare it against, and so all of a sudden you don't create an economically viable project. And so that gap has been a challenge, and our community is trying to come up with, and communities all over Iowa, all over the country, are trying to come up with different ways ways to address this. And so we've got a couple ideas that we're going to be rolling out here very soon. We're excited about to get that housing piece moving. Housing's not the only thing, though. We also need to make sure that we have activities, things for families to do, for young kids to do. And so with this Vision 2020 process that they called it, looking a few years into the future and really 2020 and beyond, we looked at things like daycare amenities. How can we provide options for two working parents? We looked at things like we call it it's a combination of things. We call it the 3-block project now, but it includes new parks. It includes a aquatic facility. It includes the daycare, and it includes some additional housing. And it's this combination of things that really would be a draw for young families, a draw for people who want to have some of the basic amenities right there for them. New brewery, new restaurants, things like that. And so all of that is ongoing, and we're very excited about some of these next projects that are coming down. We've got people looking at the brewery and coming up with the plans right now for that. The housing pieces in the works. The 3-block project is moving forward. So all of these things are really starting to come together, and it's exciting to know that where we are right now is more of a beginning than an end.
Yeah, and I love how you're using existing resources. So a lot of these things are coming into old buildings. And that middle school building that you mentioned earlier, that is actually being now repurposed. And what I also love is that you knew that was coming down the pike. So you planned ahead and you're like, okay, what can this be in its next life? And
there's so much history in these buildings, and
yeah.
And you walk around. I remember we had this wonderful event where we had some people from the Silicon Valley came out. I say people, some VIPs from the Silicon Valley came out.
It was amazing.
Yeah, and so we did a tour of where the Forge was going. It's a historic building that we're rehabbing downtown. And they were walking through, and I was explaining, well, this has been vacant for a couple decades, and their jaws dropped, and they're like, this, and it's a great building, structurally sound, all these great things. It hasn't had an occupant, and those buildings are all over the place. Our middle school is the same way. There's no elevator in it. There's all these challenges. It's too small of a classroom for education today, right? But as a apartment, as a living facility, it'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's got character. It's structurally sound. It tells a story. Like it's wonderful. And so we can't lose these resources, because if we come back and build something in its place, they don't build them like they used to, right? There's the cliche.
Absolutely.
But goodness, it's true. I mean, it's just there's so much opportunity for these structures.
Yeah, and I just love that you're thinking into the future and about new possibilities. And I think that's something we can all learn from. So what advice would you have for someone who has a dream and a vision for something similar in their small town?
Do it is the first piece. I just take that first step. There's a lot that goes into it, but a big piece of it is just starting to get things moving. I believe a big piece of us landing the Forge and that project was because we had a generation before me, before a lot of these other individuals working on this that started the ball rolling, and that gave us that momentum, that when we had people visit the community, they said, well, wow, this is great. So it's starting to have some of those small wins. Get some art up in the community. Get some activities going. Tell the story. I mean, all of those little things start to add up to create momentum, and that momentum starts to add up, and all of a sudden you find these opportunities that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. Creating a collective vision is critical. Too often there's competition in communities for the resources that are there. And so working together and having that big vision of where the community is going, if you can get everybody moving in the same direction, the possibilities are incredible. And then find ways for people to get involved in different ways. We all have different talents, right? And so there's people who are the there's people who are the visionaries who are willing to dream and think outside of the box. And there's people who will get their hands dirty and jump right into it. And there's everyone in between. And so finding ways to get different people involved and be passionate about different things and to be active, really goes toward that collective vision, that collective ownership of the process.
Yeah, and as I have been in Jefferson for a few different things, I just see how that rubs off on the community, and people are excited. It's awesome.
It's fun, huh?
Yeah. Well, as if you don't have enough on your plate already, what's next for you, Chris? And personally, work-wise?
We're moving into the construction part of the Forge build out. And so very excited. It's a historic tax credit project. There's a lot that goes into bringing all that together. And so we are nearing the end of a lot of the paperwork phase, and now we're going to start moving with the construction phase, which is going to be so exciting to start to see what we've dreamed, and we've created renderings and all of this, but to see it really start to come together. And so that's going to be the next 6 months or so, and will be very exciting to see that come together, and then to see that turn into jobs and employment, and to really start to move on what we've been talking about for the last year or so. Other than that, we've got a lot of fun things going on with the apple orchard, with the family business. It is January. January is wonderful. We've survived another season of the fall, another Christmas tree season, and so getting ready for another year ahead. Trying to think about some fun things that we might do out there. New events. We started doing ciders at sunset this last year, and so
nice.
brought in music. Had community came out and had a lot of fun with those events, and so we are in the dreaming phase right now of what do we want to do for this next year with that, and also the catching up on everything we should have been doing this fall, but we're too busy to get done.
Well, that sounds great. How do we follow you and keep up with all of this fun stuff you have going on?
Well, I will be the first to admit that I am horrible at social media, and so I do have at least a Facebook account, but I never post to it. But luckily, we have others who are far better at it than I am. The Orchard has a very active Facebook account, and we, although we're kind of hibernating now with the off season, but if you follow Deal's Orchard, or even go to the website dealsorchard.com, you can learn more about what we're doing with the Orchard. And then in the community, our Jefferson Main Street has a very active social media presence, and so they're providing updates with all the great things that's going on in Jefferson, and they often link to a lot of the other organizations. The school district is active in social media, and so they give updates there as well. We will break ground this spring on the new high school, the new career academy. And so fall of 2020 is when that's slated to be open. That's the same time when our middle school, our historic middle school, will open up, and hopefully that project will start. And several others in the meantime as well. So it's going to be a busy next few months, few years, but that's what we want, and that's what we're excited about.
Absolutely, and I'll link to all those in the show notes so everybody can go check those out. But
you can save the link to my personal one. That's
okay. Well, Chris, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This information I just know is going to help a lot of people. So thank you very much.
Well, it's been a privilege. It's been fun. Thank you very much.
Wow. Well, there is no way not to get excited about what's happening in Jefferson. Like Chris said, when you get everybody moving in the same direction, the possibilities are incredible. I've told Chris this several times, but I really do hope somebody writes a book about what's happening in Jefferson, because I think so many rural communities can learn from their example. So maybe that's an idea for somebody listening out there. Well, be sure to check out the show notes for links to everything Chris mentioned, and I'll be sure to keep you updated through our social media pages as these projects roll out in Jefferson. Huge thanks to Chris for being on the podcast and for all the great information he shared. And thanks to you for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Have a great day, everybody.